I just built a ChatGPT app that is specifically for letting you check a budget for a travel trip that you are doing. So you can see here that I've just asked it for a trip to Florence, what budget it would take for 4 people. And you can see here it's giving me a full breakdown of everything. And then it's also showing me some tips around how I could save and things like this. And I think this is really interesting because actually if you go to the ChatGPT App Store, you can see that there are a breakdown of 11% in total of all the apps that are actually in the ChatGPT App Store are travel apps. And what's interesting is that I believe that the travel industry is obviously realizing that, you know, more and more of people's planning is happening inside these LLMs, and actually they need to be present there. But what's interesting is a lot of them at the moment are very focused on whatever company vertical that they have. But I actually think there is a really big opportunity to build use case specific apps that really serve a need. And you can see here, a lot of people will be going to ChatGPT and asking about a budget for a trip and how they can optimize that and plan basically, and you can capture demand for that. So for example, like I could, just to show you, I could say, create me a budget for a trip I'm planning to Brazil next year to go to Rio Carnival. So we can see here that you can imagine someone putting in that prompt and then an app just appearing directly below to serve that need. And then that means that you've then captured that funnel to then export it out. So you could say, you know, you could imagine trip.com or TripAdvisor or whoever doing this kind of app, and then they can capture that demand. So you can see here, they've done it. And what I'm going to do today is I'm actually just going to show you how I built this app, because I think it's a really interesting use case and you can create any vertical. And it took me about less than 5 minutes actually to build this app. I did it with Fractal. And I'm going to go through and just do a full demo of how I use Fractal to basically prototype and build these kind of apps as concepts and just get them directly live and tested within ChatGPT. So the first thing that you want to do when you're looking to have a kind of use case in mind, if you want to build a ChatGPT app, is go to Fractal. So I use Fractal to either just get an app directly live, test a concept. We use it a lot with our enterprise clients as well, because we might want to have an idea in terms of how we want to execute something, and then we can build up a version, we can test a UI, stuff like this. And what I typically do is I will have an idea in mind, and then I will go with a very simple prompt, and I will get Fractal to help me. So I created a prompt earlier, and it was this one. So I'm going to say, I want to build, and then a travel budget calculator. So here it says, you know, someone's going to enter some destinations, some dates, sort of a travel style, group size maybe, and then it's just going to get a realistic budget. And this is quite cool because all you then have to do is you just click start, and then Fractal is going to help you travel budget calculator. I'll just call this demo. What it's going to do is it's then going to help you plan. So it goes into this kind of plan stage. And then on the back of that, it will then execute the app once it's got a little bit better idea of exactly what you want to execute. But I think within the travel industry, what's interesting is you could have a budget planner app. I was coming up with some other ideas around like help to discover more local spots, because that's something I know a lot of people do. Visa and travel doc checker. You know, things like where should I go? So a destination matcher. There's loads of other different verticals that you could test and try. And the first thing that Fractal actually does is it comes up with specific use cases. So within this vertical, you can see here, it says like use cases. I might say, what are some money saving hacks for traveling in Portugal? Great. Or, you know, I'm going to Tokyo with 2 people. What's the range for that? So I think these are the exact kind of use cases that we want. And then what it's doing is it's just really just basically premising the app or building the app around the intents that it thinks people will have. And then once it's confirmed those use cases, it then builds the tools that suit those use cases. So what tools are is they are basically the core foundation of any ChatGPT or MCP app. So they are basically the core sort of mechanics of how it works, and it'll become clear in a moment once I show you. This gives you an idea basically of how the use case will get handled once it has the tool. So it just says, if I'm going to Tokyo, what should my daily budget be? It's going to extract the destinations, duration, etc., and then it's going to generate this budget, and it's going to give a structured breakdown and a visual display. And that sounds right to me. Usually what I do is I accept these use case overviews, and then that then allows Fractal to basically just confirm the tools that it's going to use. Another way to think about tools is almost like features. And because ChatGPT is so intent-based driven, the idea is when someone says something like, I want to understand my budget, you know that it's going to be calculate budget. And then there's going to be a tool that then is shown to them, which is used, which is calculate budget. You have other tools that the app might have. Maybe it has, something like share my budget or anything like this. That won't be visible because of the fact that it isn't the main tool in the use case. So remember, it's ChatGPT apps are just completely intent based. So they're gonna pick the intent, they're gonna pick the tool that serves that intent, and then the rest is gonna be different. It's not like a typical website where you'd have everything in there. You've got to try and keep it really narrow and specific. Now, once that's done, it's basically come up with an overview here. So what's interesting is that you can click here and open up the tools. So it's got calculate trip budget, get destination tips, compared travel styles. So those all sound good to me. I think they serve my need. In here, you can see it's basically picked different design colors across the piece, and we can see what that looks like. So clearly it's sort of saying like when it highlights the budget, it will be green, accommodation orange, etc. What we can also do once it's live is we can obviously adjust the design, which I'll show you how to do. And then what I do is I just click approve, and that basically means that the actual plan, which is what we just went through, has been approved. So what it now does is it basically creates a plan.md file. So as this opens up, I'll explain what we're watching in a moment. But it's basically now going through and just planning out and actually executing the plan that it just created to actually build the app. Now, Fractal has very sophisticated agents. So what it's actually able to do is basically trained on the OpenAI SDK. It's trained on some skills that it uses to best create these kind of apps. So it's actually able to also create them very, very quickly. But I think a few things to mention and note that are useful to understand. So this is basically your preview. So what this means is that without having to go all the way to putting the app into ChatGPT, you can actually begin to just test the app and see how it functions. This is your main agent. So within here, what you then want to be doing is, what I typically do is like, if I want to change something, I'll just prompt it here. Or if I want to actually, take a screenshot, for example, and edit something, then I might take a screenshot, put it in, and then ask it to change that particular thing. This is the tooling section. So you can see here, these are the sort of like features that I mentioned earlier. Tools are, someone, like I said, someone has an intent. One tool is served to help to fit that intent. So someone goes like, I want to calculate a budget for a trip. We're going to use the calculate trip budget tool. If someone says, I want, tips for things that I could do or hacks to save money in a place, I'm going to use the get destination tips, right? So tips to save money in that destination. So these are the tools that it's going to use basically to go and do it. Now, interestingly, for this demo, we didn't actually require any sort of API per se or like data import, anything like that. That is typical to sometimes need it. So sometimes what Fractal will do is it will, in the plan process, basically just understand, like, do you have an existing API? Do you want us to use mock data? So sometimes you can actually just like use mock data to set it up, and then you don't have to, have data already. It's just really good for conceptualizing things. So then it's done. So how quick was that? It's probably like a minute maybe. And you can actually also see it in different devices, so iPad, mobile. And then what they do is they actually give you some starter prompts. So let's just see what happens when I use this prompt here. So I'm going to Tokyo 5 days, 2 people, mid-size range, what's my daily budget? And I can then see that it's invoked this, the calculate travel trip. And then here we go. Very nice. So it's now just showing me basically a balance each day of everything here. It's got the expand function, which is really nice. So I can actually expand it full view. Really like that. And then it's actually even got the sort of like money saving like tips at the bottom, which is nice as well. We can also figure out overlaying on the message side there. But that's actually really good to start with. So happy with that. What I can also then do is just try another prompt. So I clear that. Then I can say, what are some money saving hacks for traveling in Portugal? I'll see if I recognize any of these. I'm actually in Lisbon at the moment. So here you can see it's actually now using the get destination tips. So maybe someone said, they want to make sure. Okay, cool. So here we go. Public transportation done like a local, free attractions, stay in hostels, buy groceries, markets. Okay, I mean, these are fairly generic, but perhaps obviously this is just a demo example. If you had an API and you actually had some data, or you did some training on the LLM to actually go and do more like research, for example, then one thing that I thought I could show you actually would be like, let's say that you're happy with this, you can make updates, so you would just directly prompt them. One example of that could be like, let's say you wanted to update the UI. Now, something that I like to do is like, I will use apps that I like, and then I will basically say to design in a similar way to them. So one just products design that I actually really like is I think Replit is really well designed. I like their kind of like simplistic branding. I like the orange and the black and the white kind of all balancing together. I'm just going to take like a screenshot of this app. Now this is just a demo app that they made. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to Fractal, and then I'm just going to say, I like the design of this app. It's in the screenshot here. Can you please update the UI design to be more in line with this? Great. So this is now going to basically just understand that design intent that I've just given it, and it's going to refine and update the design so that it's more in line with it. And this is just a good example of how easy it is to make these updates. So you could just take a screenshot of something you want to change. You can just ask it directly if you like the use of the design. Now you can see here actually what it's done is it's improved the design here in line with that image that I gave it, which is cool. So let's test this now. So I'm just going to put in the same prompt. You can actually just make any prompt in here, not just the ones it gives you. You can also just directly type prompts in here. And you can see it's picked up the same one. Cool. Okay, great. So you can see an updated design here, and it sort of simplified it a little bit, made the orange, which I like, which is cool, and gives a total for the group, total for the person. Yeah, I like this a lot. This is much cleaner. I didn't really like the multicolor that much. So actually this is perfect. And let's have a look for what it says for the other one. I think remember what it looked like before. I had all those different emojis on the different sections. Cool. Yeah. I mean, I like the emojis, but again, it's a bit cleaner. And you can always just go backwards and forwards. If you wanted something added, you could ask it for the emojis. Now, something else that I wanted to show was that you might have seen when I added this prompt, actually the data that I was getting back was just quite high level. And what I wanted to do was really just improve the result that I was getting back. And one way that I've done that is actually to basically just ask ChatGPT to just use the best possible model. So I tried to use the Perplexity API, and I think that this is definitely something that you can do, but I think Fractal right now, they're much more focused on using the core ChatGPT models just because it works better, but I know they are working on implementation of like easy use of APIs like Perplexity, Nano Banana, stuff like this, because there are use cases for those. But one of the best ways that you can do it is actually just to say, I want to use So in this case, what I've said is I want to use ChatGPT's models to improve the results I'm getting back. Explained right now, I'm getting very basic results. And then say actually that I want it to basically use ChatGPT's best models, ideally search related, to get better results. And then basically the first thing that I said is I asked it to plan it out first. And it said its solution would be, remove any use of perplexity. That wasn't working in this instance. But then instead, to change the tool schema. So instead, the server's going to do research, and then it's going to come back with a result. And then in this instance, it's going to use ChatGPT 4.0, and it's going to do the search browsing to find real current information, which is really cool. And then it's also going to update the tool description, which is great because it's going to update the data that's found. I've just noticed here it has said 2004 data, so I might need to update that. We'll see what comes back. But now when I search and I do this, test, we should get much more up-to-date and current data and things that aren't generic. It should be much more suited to the location that's chosen. So in this case, Portugal. So we can see here it's invoked the same tool description, which is great. And then let's have a look around what comes back. Great. This is awesome. So this is actually very accurate because I like I said, I'm based in Lisbon, and you can see here a lot of things that I would recommend. So this is really, really good. And you can see how easy that was. All I did was I just said, this is the outcome that I want. Go and use the best model to go and do that. And it's doing exactly that. So if you then want to get this actually tested and live in ChatGPT, the best thing to do is you just want to click deploy. Now what that's going to do is that's going to deploy the MCP server that this is built on to basically mean that it's in production. And then what you can do is you are able to then actually copy that URL and then put that directly into ChatGPT so you can test it live in ChatGPT. So I'll leave it for a moment because it takes a minute or so to deploy, and then I'll resume the video and I will show you how to get it actually testing live in ChatGPT as well. Okay, great. Now, this is what happens when that's done. So you get this deploy now, or deployed to, and then that's the URL. So you just need to copy that. Then if you go into ChatGPT, if I can just create a new chat. If I go to settings here, then you go to apps, and then I've installed a lot of apps. But then if you go down to advanced settings and click on create app, then once that's done, you want to click on no auth, because we didn't do auth for this one, no authentication, no login. We just paste that server URL, and you can see here that's the MCP server URL, and that's what this is. You can see here it has MCP at the end. And then we'll just call it travel budget. Ooh. Cool. And then you just click that button and you click create. And then what that's going to do is that's going to actually allow me to properly test this app directly in ChatGPT, which is really important because you will see differences between any testing environment and ChatGPT. So you always want to make sure that you test it directly in there. And what's also important is you want to make sure that you're in developer mode. So you can see, maybe I'll just show you how to turn it on first. So if you scroll back down and you go to advanced settings, that's where you can see developer mode. So you can see it on there, and it allows you to add unverified connectors. So the idea here is that you are, obviously there for more risk because it's not verified by them, but it's your own MCP server, so it's trusted as long as you know where it's come from. Okay, and now we can test it. So I've just changed the name actually to budget tracker, and if I say something like I'm going to visit Singapore towards the end of April for a week on a business trip, and I want to understand the cost, can you find out for me? Great. So this should come back with the full sort of like budget tracker tool, and let's have a look. Yeah, great. That's calling nicely, and that should then just load the different options around how much it will cost per the different budget types. Cool. Okay. So you can see here, yeah, daily on food, accommodation, activities sounds about right. And money saving tips, which is cool. And this is great. You can see these are very specific. So these are much better than the ones that were actually there previously, which is really, really cool. So honestly, this is a great outcome. You can see here that it's really specific. It's called the tool well, and you can test it directly in ChatGPT with an improved UI. And it just gives you an overview and an understanding of how you can very, very quickly build an app and get it live and just do it all from prompting and reusing Fractal. So great app. Like I said, you can do a huge amount with the platform. If you're keen to use it, then they do have a discount on at the moment. I'll drop that discount in the description below so you can use it. By the way, another thing to note is we have the largest ChatGPT app and MCP app community in our Discord. So definitely check that out. Loads of interesting people in there building ChatGPT apps, MCP apps. And also, if you're looking to get your ChatGPT app and MCP app discovered, then you should go to appdiscoverability.com, and I'll also drop some more links to that in the comments as well.